Hello friends, just because everyone has heard of Wi-Fi, most certainly doesn't mean that they know what Wi-Fi is or how it works. In fact, most of us don't even know what does Wi-Fi stands for, let all alone what all those numbers and letters represent. So in today's video we will find out what exactly all these terms means. So friends, when we talk about the term Wi-Fi, it helps to know right off the bat that Wi-Fi doesn't actually mean anything. Many people believe it refers to wireless fidelity, but in fact the name is simply just a marketing term that an advertising agency came up with back in 1999 when wireless technology was still struggling to find its feet. Nowadays, of course, it has become the de facto term for a wireless network, but what does actually it mean and where did it all start? We will be seeing it. Wi-Fi or wireless networking, as should be referred to before it became a staple computer accessories, is a technology that actually much older than most people think. First tinkered with by a professor at the University of Hawaii named Norman Abramson, the act of transmitting data over the air was first achieved via a HAM radio in 1971. Due to the huge expense of the equipment that was required to make a HAM setup work, wireless would sit dormant on the shelves until the mid-90s when various formats and wireless frequencies were being proposed as the standard for the band that wireless internet would occupy. By 1997, the IEEE had agreed on the 802.11 standard, which at that time was tied to what we know now known as a 802.11b. In order to get more companies and consumers interested in the wireless internet technology, the IEEE settled on the shortcut Wi-Fi, which would be adopted across the board as the universal term to describe a wireless LAN network that multiple users can transmit data to and from simultaneously. So friends, we have noted 802.11 standard was erased initially, but later it was changed to 802.11b as the extra letter was addressed in order to denote the generation of wireless technology that could devices will support. For example, the B standard was the very first to come out and could support a transmission rate of around 11 Mbps on the 2.4 GHz spectrum. Next came the 802.11a standard in 2002, which was capable of transmitting upwards of 54 Mbps over the newly minted 5 GHz frequency spectrum. Fast forward to today, where the latest and hottest on the market is the 802.11ac standard, which is capable of transmitting a whopping 1.3 GB per second over both the 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz spectrum at the same time. So friends, now we will discuss what is Wi-Fi bands like 2.4 GHz versus 5 GHz. So when we throw a random collection of numbers and letters like 2.4 GHz out there, we should know that we are referencing the wireless spectrum that Wi-Fi routers use to communicate with the devices that they are hooked up to. 2.4 GHz is the first technology that came out and is considered to be much more crowded than 5 GHz due to the amount of time it has been all around us. Most laptops, cell phones and tablets connect on this spectrum, which means that it can be harder to maintain a solid connection for long periods of time without experiencing periodic packet loss. That said, the 5 GHz band, which is considerably less noisy than 2.4 GHz, because of the way the signal travel has a tendency to become exceptionally less reliable the more object, like the doors, floors, etc. It has to pass through to get to its internal service device. So if you live in an apartment complex, in a smaller dwelling, the 5 GHz spectrum can be a better choice as it has to compete with the less wireless devices. Just remember, 5 GHz can be worse if you live in a large home that has lots of physical barriers between you and the router. So in summary, whether you should jump on 2.4 or 5 GHz depends on where your router is in the home and how surrounded you are by other people. If the next time you open your wireless networks and see 5 to 15 other routers around you, 5 GHz is going to be the way to go. On the other hand, 2.4 GHz is great if you don't have a lot of devices trying to connect at once and are using the connection over long range. Friends, now we will see what is Wi-Fi security modes. Like we have WP, WPA to PSK. So we will get into these details. So there is a security standards as I said, WEP. WEP was the first layer of protection that wireless routers would use to encrypt the channel of communication that devices would use to talk to the router's base station. Widely known to be hackable and the least secure of the bunch. It is not recommended you use WP anymore unless you have a specific reason for turning it on. The newest standard is called a WPA2 PSK. It's a highly uncrackable using something known as the temporal key integrity protocol. This protocol makes sure that every device is handled with its very own pre-encrypted key that can't be hijacked or stolen by any man-in-the-middle attacks that might attempt to impersonate a new user on the net. WPA2 PSK protects the password that you create when you first create your wireless network, a specific string of anywhere from 8 to 63 unique characters. Without this, it would be simple for anyone with an iPhone to simply walk by, pick up your signal, and have access to all the devices and computers currently attached to the network at once. Wireless technology started its humble beginning as a garage project for engineers in Hawaii and has come to drastically affect the way we communicate and network with each other in the modern world. From wearable technology to programmable thermostats to wireless speakers, everything. As connection standards continue to improve and download speeds just keep getting speedier, it seems that the sky is the only limit on how fast we can go from here on out. So stay tuned and check out the further reviews about the wireless routers in my next video.